Welcome along to the latest SeahawksDraftBlog.com live stream. We are here a few days away from the start of the NFL draft. Very important draft for the Seahawks. Rob Staton, Robbie Williams, Adam Nathan with you here today. Get your super chats in. If you want a question, we will try and get to those as soon as possible. Super chats will get priority. There will be a bit of time at the end for maybe a bit of a Q&A as well. What we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a chat about the draft and the Seahawks and where they are right now. We will run through I'll run through a mock draft, and the fellas can give some thoughts on it as we go through. Just the first round, depending on how long that takes, we may just run through a sneaky little simulation as well if we've got time. But as Robbie and I were talking off air, the draft simulators this year have been all over the place, so it's not quite as fun this year when stupid stuff that won't happen in real life happens in the simulator, and you kind of have to go, well, I won't take him because he wouldn't be there. So we'll see how we're going on. But I hope Seahawks fans are excited about the draft. But fellas, just to start with this, I must admit there was a part of me last night when I read a report by Tony Pauline, and he reported that the Seahawks are very seriously considering Trevor Penning at number 9 overall, and then trading back into the first round for a quarterback. And people were saying, oh, why would the Seahawks let this information out? And why would this get out there? They probably want this out there. And my response to that was, it was almost exactly this time a year ago that Tony Pauline was saying, Zaven Collins is going to be drafted by the Arizona Cardinals at number 16 overall, which nobody was projecting. And it came exactly true. Russell Wilson was told by Chris Mortensen before the draft, you're going to be a Seattle Seahawk. A couple of years ago, Peter Schrager, out of nowhere, suddenly put Darrell Taylor with the Seahawks at the end of the first round and said, I'm hearing that they really like Darrell Taylor. Information gets out and has consistently got out. So I wouldn't completely write off what Tony was reporting yesterday, that maybe the Seahawks will essentially try and trade down from 9. And if they can't, take Trevor Penning at number 9 and then try and trade up into the first for one of these mediocre quarterbacks. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But the thought I was going to put to you first, fellas, was as I was kind of digesting this information, I kind of felt like, where are the team going here? If that was the plan, what exactly is the plan? Because the Seahawks are not close to contending at the moment. I personally hope they will just add best player available at every pick that they have, try and build up a foundation and a roster so that they can set themselves up for long-term success. I think chasing what would essentially be the 4th best tackle on the board at number 9, because he kind of fits what they've gone for in the past, very explosive, big, athletic, but he's got a lot of technique issues, and there are some issues elsewhere with Trevor Penning that we'll come on to shortly. Just taking that to fill one of your 2 gaping holes at tackle and then getting a quarterback to just throw into the competition, I'm not that keen on that. And it's easy to forget that the Seahawks started this offseason saying pass rush was the priority. And what exactly have they done for the pass rush? They've got rid of Carlos Dunlap. They brought in Shelby Harrison and Chenna Nwosu. Got rid of Benson Mayowa. It's not exactly like they've addressed the pass rush need. So if they take a tackle at number 9, are you going to be able to fix the pass rush in round 2, round 3? Not sure about that. So, Robbie, how are you feeling about this? I mean, I want to be excited, and I am excited about the draft. I'm really excited to see what happens. But I'm also thinking, what exactly is the plan here? If it isn't just to sort of accept a rebuild and draft best player available, because what Tony reported wasn't that.
No, listen, if what Tony reported is true, then in my opinion, that's absolute worst case scenario. I don't think Trevor Penning is worth it at 9. I also don't think trading back up to the first round for a quarterback is worth it. I would much rather see them take best player available, whether that's Derek Stingley or someone else. They're better players available at 9. I like the idea of trading down. Someone said if you want to snag Penny at 14 or 16, sure. Again, but even at that range, I'm looking at Zion Johnson or someone else. I just don't think Penny's worth it. He reminds me of he's trying to play that tough guy role, and he's the kind of guy that's going to get beat, and he needs a lot of help. He's not going to come in and be incredible this year. He needs a lot of help. He's the kind of guy that you draft. I think if you have someone that maybe like if Dwayne Brown was already on the roster, and he could, help coach him up. He could mentor underneath him for a little bit, maybe, and that's like a luxury pick. But for me, I think that's worst case scenario. Penny is not the guy for me.
Yeah, with Penning, I mean, just to give a quick thought on him, people watched the Senior Bowl. He was beat a lot at the Senior Bowl, and there were some really big issues there. He was very high in his stance, so he was getting shoved back into the pocket a lot. And he is a tall guy, which will happen. He's got a big frame. He can get into that pan and drive him back. He was really susceptible to the inside counter. And then he tried to compensate for that. And because defenders knew he was compensating for that, they would then sort of feign to go inside, convert speed to power, bull rush him. And they had a lot of success. There was one snap where 235-pound Kyron Johnson, who's going to go on day 3, dumped him on his backside because he's too tall in his stance and he gets driven back. Now, he has the traits of all of the top offensive tackles in the NFL. The ideal size, he's explosive, he's very quick and athletic. That's what you like. But I'm not a big fan of this judo tossing people at the end of the whistle type of thing. You run a very fine line. He was penalized a lot in college between, trying to be tough and potentially getting flagged an awful lot. And we've seen too much of that over the years with Seattle Seahawks tackles, whether it was false starts with Fedi or Breno Giacomini with his unsportsmanlike conduct. We don't need any more of that. And I don't think he's a left tackle, frankly. I think he's probably a team like Baltimore and LA can put him at right tackle. And I think it's a good project for them. For the Seahawks trying to launch a rebuild at him, I don't want to go with, an upside projecty type of tackle in the top 10. When you get a top 10 pick, you kind of want a really good player that is going to come in and potentially within a year or two even be one of the best players in his position in the league.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, the only reason that you trade Russell Wilson for the picks that you did is that you envisaged that those picks end up being as franchise defining as the player you've let go for them. Otherwise, the premise of the trade in the first place doesn't make sense. And we've heard so much about how last year they thought, well, they'll trade for Jamal Adams because the COVID draft, as it was coined, won't bear the fruits that we may think other drafts may do. So, at that point, we don't need the picks. And it's interesting that going into this draft, which, I'm not a huge draft Nick, I follow it, obviously. It seems like as uninspiring a draft at the top level in terms of, the superstar talent, the franchise-changing players that could come in and change everything. It seems strange that having done what you did with Jamal Adams last year or a couple of years ago, that you would then do this going into this draft when it does seem quite tricky to really legislate how you can turn the player into the picks and the picks back into the players to sort of get you back to where you are. And this idea of penning and then trading back in, that for me screams of, why a lot of bad teams stay bad, because they end up chasing in the draft and they end up in sort of this cycle of purgatory that gets you nowhere fast, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. And what I would rather see them do, and look, this is the thing, is I don't dislike Trevor Penning as a prospect. I'm a little bit cautious of the Seahawks taking him in the top 10. I think if the Chargers took him at 17, that's perfectly understandable. He's got a lot of upside. They are almost a complete roster in LA, and the Chargers could justify that kind of a pick. For the Seahawks, as this is Russell Okung level, this is the first guy you're taking after a huge trade. This player is going to be associated with the trade because in a year, 2-3 years time, everyone's going to go, what did the Seahawks get for Russell Wilson? And the first name on that list is going to be whoever they take with the first pick in this draft, whether it's at 9 or whether they trade down. And I want it to be somebody with that pick who you think legitimately is going to look really good in a list that says Russell Wilson on one side and all of your players that you've drafted on the other. I'm not sure that that's Trevor Penning. Now, if Trevor Penning goes on to be a top left tackle, then obviously that would be great. But I'm not convinced that he is going to be. And I think that's why they were trying him at right guard at the Senior Bowl, because I think the teams know there's a chance that he might have to move inside. I think when they made this trade, Robbie, they felt very good that there might be a really good pass rusher there. Jermaine Johnson, Travon Walker have both flown right at the boards. They could go in the top 4 very easily. Walker could even be the number 1 overall pick. And it's taken an option away from them. We've seen offensive linemen such as Ekwonu, and people are saying Cross is going to go in the top 10. I'm not a big fan of his. Evan Neal being projected, ahead of them now. Have they just sort of is it rather unfortunate that they've just ended up maybe a couple of picks away from where they kind of need to be? You know, they kind of need to be number 7 overall at least to get what they need, and now they've found themselves at 9. And if that is the case, Robbie, my preference is as simple as this: if Derek Stingley's there, take a chance on Derek Stingley being the player that we all thought Derek Stingley was going to be when he had that first season at LSU, and he legitimately looked like he was going to be the best cornerback to enter the league since Patrick Peterson, who was also at LSU. And if you don't want to do that, and if the option's there to move down, then move down, get into the middle of the first round, accept that this isn't a great first round, and just try and get a really good player. And for me, that's a Zion Johnson type. I think George Karlaftis is going to have a reasonable career. You know, he's a pass rusher. You know, I think guys like that, you know, you've got a chance to say, okay, they're going to stick with the team. They're going to get a second contract. They might never be elite to the elite at a premium position, but at least no one's going to turn around and go, that was a huge honking mistake, which is, I think, what might happen if you take Trevor Penning at number 9 and then get some more picks. Because, you know, the other thing about the Wilson trade, if they turn 9 into sort of 3 or 4 players, and those 3 or 4 players are really good, that looks as good as getting one really good player at number 9. So that's what I would rather do. That's what I hope they're going to do, Robbie. I'm comfortable taking a really good quarterback in the first round. I'm not sure that they are, though. That's sort of what I hope they would do in that situation, though. If the top, I want to get on to some slightly different angle of this. The top tackles and pass rushers have gone. Pivot to cornerback. It's a premium position, or trade down.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the other thing too is sitting at 9 makes you just really hope that there's a team that's overthinking, or a team or two that's overthinking their draft position and where they're at, and thinking maybe a GM comes in for the Carolina Panthers, or maybe the owner comes in for the Panthers and says, no, you need to take Malik Willis, or something like this is what I want, you know, and you hope something like that happens, and they shift their focus. But I mean, you're really that's a real big hope, right? And it's very unrealistic that that's going to happen. So I think in this scenario, you're gonna have to trade down or take a Derek Stingley, and you know, he's got the kind of potential that, you know, has that all-star potential. Trevor Penny just doesn't scream all-star potential. He's a project. Someone said it earlier, and I totally agree. I think Abraham Lucas would be a way better pick as well. And it just there's too many tackles that you could have maybe in the second round that I think have just as much potential as Trevor Penny. Again, I if you want to trade down and get him later on, fine. But I mean, I think it needs to be a home run pick right off the bat, or a really good trade down.
Yeah, the gaping holes at tackle are a bit of a tell. I think it's unfathomable to think that they're not going to take a tackle in the first 3 picks. It doesn't have to be number 9. If they ended up saying, okay, we can't justify Penning at 9, we would have taken him if we'd have traded down. That's fine. I think that, you know, in round 2, you've just got to sort of see where you're at. And, you know, if Abraham Lucas is there, I'm not sure he will be. We'll get onto that in the mock in a moment. But if he was, that's a right tackle that could reasonably, you know, come in and start very quickly. And I think he possibly, I've got him higher on my horizontal board than Trevor Penning anyway. But I think they're going to take a tackle very early. Adam, I think listening to them, because you can learn stuff by listening to them. The way that they were speaking makes me think they don't really like the options at number 9 that much. And they were kind of really putting the message out there. Oh, you know, if somebody, you know, well, we need to see if there's people who want to move up here, and we need to see whether the quarterbacks push up and how that might make things unfold. Because I think what they're hoping for is either someone to fall to them at number 9, or someone's going to make them a big offer to move down. I don't think they like the options at 9 with the way that they were talking. And that's what worries me, that if they have to grudgingly pick at 9, it's going to be grudgingly picking somebody that they're not crazy about at number 9. It's gonna be that it could end up being that Penning pick because they just think, oh, it's a need and we'll fill that hole.
Well, I mean, you'll know this a lot better than I will, but from, you know, just scanning back over the last 10 years, it strikes me that you'll do very well to get 3 out of the top 10 picks in the draft correctly predicted the way it's going at this stage. You know, one domino could fall that sets a whole chain off in a position that we have, you know, no comprehension was going to be. But, you know, there's no quarterbacks that normally front load the draft. There isn't that dominant, Myles Garrett player that you think, well, he's obviously going to be so high. So it just seems so hard to predict what's going on. But I just quickly scribbled down like the 9 position groups for the sake of argument there, and vaguely ranked them from top to bottom. And I feel that we've ended up in a position on the roster where at running back, linebacker, safety, and tight end, the team are fairly well stocked. And those for me are my 4 bottom place positions. Then you've got wide receiver where they're fairly well stocked, depending on how you feel about having 2 versus 3. And then my top 4 positions, I've got quarterback, cornerback, defensive end, and offensive line, which are the 4 positions that you'd probably say there's gaping or at least holes there that you think you'd love to get a player there. So it strikes me as a position where at 9, you could just, as I say, bite the bullet and take the best player that you think is there in those positions, because you don't have much to lose at this stage with it. You've got so many holes to fill that, obviously, unless you can get an offer of a trade down, but if you can't trade down, then I feel like if you were able just to take the, back your scouting, and I've said this before, if the scouting doesn't work, get rid of the scouts, man. I think they should have done it a long time ago. But if you don't back what you're doing in that position, just take one of the 4 premium positions, on a roster, because you've got holes in all of them. So there's only so far wrong you can get if you have to pick at that stage. Would be my my general thought on it.
Yeah, and that's a good way of looking at it, and it is a problem. And that's why I was sort of thinking last night, what exactly is the plan here? Because if the aim is, we want to compete, we want to do this. Well, we've all heard all the comments from Carroll now. I mean, by the way, that press conference, they spent a good 10 minutes trying to convince everybody that there was a load of energy in the room. And I was like, you know what, guys, you're saying it too much. Just you're trying to, who are you trying to convince, us or yourselves? Just go through the process. More action, less words. I don't think you can talk that into existence. I hope there is energy, but you're not going to convince anybody who can't see that. So stop mentioning it, because it made it sound a little bit to me like they were protesting a little bit too much on that. But yeah, they don't have enough picks to fill all these huge premium needs. They've got 3 high picks, and if you're spending 1 on a quarterback, you're not getting a corner or a pass rusher. If you spend 1 on you can't fill everything. And the idea should not be, I really hope it's not going to be, come out of this draft and then what they like to call the second wave of free agency, what I like to call is the, oh crap, we haven't filled that hole, let's do something now period. And then go and fill out the roster so that they can go into training camp thinking, hey, we've got a chance. But they're not going to have a chance, because then even if they draft a quarterback in round 1, they're not going to have a good enough quarterback to be competitive. They're not going to be good enough. If they start Trevor Penning at left or right tackle, he's going to be a very raw rookie tackle. There's the pass rush as it stands today looks pretty crap to me. And the positions, you've kind of lost your best cornerback in DJ Reed because you didn't want to pay him. And you've replaced him with one of either Artie Burns or hopefully Trey Brown if he comes back. I mean, this is not, to me, and who knows how Quandre Diggs is going to come back from the injury and Jamal Adams are going to come back from the injury. You've lost Bobby Wagner. I think that was the right decision completely, but you've not replaced him in any way whatsoever. So, and is a rookie going to be able to come in? Jordan Brooks didn't come in as a rookie and set the world on fire. So why is any rookie? So it's quite clear that this team is in no shape or form to contend this year. But if you go in with the mentality of we need to fill our roster to compete, that's when you make mistakes. I really just hope that they go through this process now and go, he's really good, we'll take him. He's really good, we'll take him. He's going to be part of this core moving forward, which is why, as I've said before, and also build your identity up. So as I've said a few times on the blog, I am not against them moving down, taking Zion Johnson, who I think could be as good as Elijah Vera Tucker, who went 14 overall to the Jets a year ago. Then you get a few extra picks, you take him in the mid-teens, you move up and get Tyler Linderbaum, and you say, if nothing else, we're going to be able to run the ball with this interior line. You've got Johnson left guard, Linderbaum center, Lewis right guard. You bring back Dwayne Brown, flipping it, just find a right tackle somewhere. And then you go out there and you say, we want to run the ball. 75% of the fan base might disagree with Pete Carroll's philosophy, but this is what we want. And you do it. And you execute the team that you want to be, which they haven't done for a number of years. I'm completely content with that. But whether they're going to do it or not, who knows? I don't personally really think. I mean, right now with the roster, if you put in Trevor Penning, a backup, a young quarterback, and let's say a pass rusher, a linebacker in round 2, I think the Seahawks have got a legitimate chance to be picking first overall next year with that. And that's with a mentality of we're filling the team out to contend. Now, I'd rather sort of build the team up and say in different areas, not fill holes. And still, if they're bad, they're bad. But then at least, you know, they've added some good players. But just quickly on the quarterback before we get into this mock draft. Robbie, I'm not sure I buy the idea on this. I'm not sure that Tony's report's going to be right on this moving up for quarterback. Firstly, because I don't think the quarterback's really good. Secondly, you know, people are going about Drew Lock's not the answer, or whatever. Okay, Lance Zierlein, when he does the grades on NFL.com. His draft grade for Drew Lock was a 6.40. Malik Willis is his highest graded quarterback in this class. I think he's a 6.40 or a 6.41. It's exactly the same as Drew Lock. They're all graded the same as Drew Lock was. Why would you take a quarterback in this draft who is graded the same as Drew Lock? You might as well just give Drew Lock another chance. I know that people are kind of put off by the perception of, oh, he was bad in Denver. But these quarterbacks aren't any better in the draft, really. You might as well, if you're going to draft one of these guys, why not just have a look at Drew Lock for a year and push it into next year? You might as well. Because he's got per the grade going in, his grade's the same as these guys' grades going in.
Yeah, I would rather see Drew Lock than any of these quarterbacks. I mean, the only one that I would be semi-interested in, and that's if he fell in the second round, would be Matt Corral. But even then, he's got massive issues as well. I kind of like your idea of just taking a quarterback in the 5th or 6th round that's someone who's maybe got a little potential, someone who can come in, make the practice squad and kind of see what they have. But really, go with Drew Lock, see what you got for this year. You're not gonna draft the quarterback of the future. I don't believe this year. It doesn't seem like these quarterbacks are the ones that are going to make a huge difference, or they're not going to come in and be game changers. Build your team up from the trenches in, and then let it go from there. I think that's exactly the route you need to take in this draft. But the problem that I'm having with the Seahawks right now is, like, I was so excited for the draft after the Russell trade. I was so I was bummed, obviously, because I wanted him to build around Russ, but at least we had an answer. And then it was like free agency was like Will Dissly. Oh, we just re-signed Geno Smith for stupid money. Who were we competing with Geno Smith? Why didn't he get veteran minimum? Like, why are we giving him so much money? Like, it makes no sense. They've totally just took all my joy away, and I'm not really sure what to expect. I want to be super stoked about this draft, but I'm worried they're just going to come in and do what we've seen them do the last few years, which is make really silly decisions and not take the best player available.
In fairness, on the Geno Smith one, it's since come out that he's got a guaranteed contracts worth $500,000. So he's basically on the hook for nothing. But whoever decided it was a great idea to let it be known that he was on a $7 million contract just to freak everybody out for about 3 days is a muppet. Because
I didn't see that. So yeah, I'm down on that boat.
I mean, did they honestly? Because the contract gets out anyway, so there's no like, oh look, we've rallying behind Geno Smith. He's our guy. Smokescreen. Got you. He's only on $500,000 because everybody knows he's on $500,000 now before the draft anyway. So it was pointless having it come out that he could earn up to $7 million, and we all know he won't earn $7 million because Geno Smith is rubbish. So that's not going to happen. I mean, it's a bit embarrassing actually that we've had this kind of song and dance about bringing Geno Smith back. I understand why they want someone back this week who's actually played football for Seattle at quarterback, because it helps with whatever they've been doing this week, to have somebody in the building who knows the calls, who can get everyone organized. And with $500,000, if they want to cut him in training camp, they can do. It'll be very worrisome if he is the best option by the time they get there and he beats out Drew Lock. Because frankly, I don't think I can watch even 6 games of Geno Smith, let alone 17. So we'll see on that. But I think that's a fair point, Adam, before we get into the mock draft, that the trade was made. I am very excited about this draft. I am very positive about witnessing it, and then I'll reserve judgment on anything that happens until afterwards. But the free agency period for me was a great opportunity. It was to go and you've saved a bit of money, you've got a bit to play with. It's the first, go and bring in some players. And they've kind of done the same thing again. They've just put band-aids on everything. Like, we'll take a cornerback on a 1-year contract worth $2 million. If he plays well, what do you do? Do you lose him in a year like DJ Reed? Uchenna Nwosu's here for 2 years. It's not a long-term building block. the centre. They're overpaying Austin Blythe $4 million to be here for a year. If he does well, is he going to cost you 8 to 10 million in a year's time? Or are you going to be replacing him again with another Band-Aid? This is the problem, is that whenever the Seahawks get to a free agency, they never really put down any roots. Sometimes, and I know that free agency is full of pitfalls, that you end up paying average players elite money. But you also can bring in players, like the Bengals have done it. They've essentially built an offensive line. It's not cost them an absolute ridiculous amount of money to do so. And it's there and it's in place for 3 or 4 years now. The Seahawks never do this. They're constantly leaving the door open for holes down the line. Their long-term building blocks are so few and far between. They basically work with a 53-man ghost roster at the moment. The only sort of consistent features were like Wilson and Wagner and the latest draft class. Now Wilson and Wagner have gone. The whole roster, short of maybe Tyler Lockett, Jamal Adams, and Quandre Diggs, and maybe one or two others, it's all kind of like short term. It's all Band-Aids. It's all could be gone within a year or two.
Yeah, so we were lucky enough on our show to speak to Tyvis Powell on Friday, who's a former Seahawk safety, bounced around the league a bit and was there during the LOB time and a little bit after that. And we were discussing kind of the decline, in inverted commas, however you want to put it, of the Seahawks. And he said, well, the biggest problem they've had is that certainly defensively, they thought that their scheme would outweigh talent. And so what they did was they just decided to keep doing the same thing and not put much priority on the players that were coming in to do it, but such was their faith in the scheme. And it struck me that you could kind of extrapolate that thought out to almost everything that they do in roster construction here and team building, and that they have incredible faith in what they do. And then everything else that happens around that is secondary. So, we all went into free agency, as we say, with, I think there was genuine excitement, people throwing money figures around $50 million here, $50 million there, and they just did what they've always done. And then it strikes me with the draft coming up that I keep hearing on the radio, this is where Pete and John, can do their thing. They give them picks. It's like they've had picks for the last 10 years. Like every team gets the same number of picks in the draft every year. And I find it almost ridiculous that the idea that they are going to be better off now drafting when they're trying to flesh out a bad roster. Well, they've had 8 years to flesh out a good roster with basically the same number of picks as they have now. And it hasn't worked out at all well. And they've ended up in decline. So I know we're kind of coming back to the idea of, should they be here? And well, they are. So, what am I even moaning about? Because we've got what we've got. But my lack of maybe excitement from a team perspective stems around the fact that their modus operandi is this is what we do and we trust what we do. But is there anything to suggest that we as fans should trust what they do?
That's a fair question. They've never been particularly good in the early rounds, or sorry, the first round. I mean, I know that they were sort of pumping up the Bruce Irvin pick the other day, saying, "Look, people doubted that, and it was spot on." It's like, well, yeah, was it though? You mean Bruce didn't sign a second contract? He was benched in 2013 when you won the Super Bowl for Malcolm Smith, who was a 7th round pick. So was that a great success? Not really, not for me. Not when you could have had Fletcher Cox when you traded down and passed on Fletcher Cox, and Chandler Jones was drafted after Bruce Irvin. I mean, you have to look at those two players and say, well, you could have had either of those two. They're both still playing today, and Chandler Jones has been paid an absolute fortune to continue his career with the Raiders, and Fletcher Cox just re-signed a huge mega deal or renegotiated a mega deal to stay in Philadelphia, and has helped them win a Super Bowl. So, no, I don't think the Bruce Irvin pick was a great pick. I really like James Carpenter in 2011, but I didn't expect them necessarily to take him in the first round. That didn't work out as intended because he had to play guard and he was in and out of the lineup. Yes, they did very well in the first round. Perhaps a little fortunate that Earl Thomas fell to them. That was, and if he hadn't, what would have happened then? Russell Okung was solid, but didn't get a second contract with the Seahawks. So they've never really been top performers in this sort of early round. Now, the good news is that they have been pretty good in round 2 and 3, and they've got 3 picks in those areas, and it might be why they perhaps want to trade down from 9 and get more on day 2, because that's where they've done a lot of their better work. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't be too negative. But I saw someone in the comment section say that Gino is not terrible. Let's just be clear. Gino is terrible. Right, let's get on with the draft, the mock draft. And I'll introduce it on here. Okay. There we go. Right, so we've got this. If you want to send comments and reactions in, super chat away. If you send a super chat in, we will come to you straight away. Just seen that they've posted another comment saying Gino isn't terrible. Gino is terrible. I will keep saying, every time that you send that, I will keep saying it in response. Right, let's get on with the mock draft. So I'll just sort of run through the first pick very briefly. I think Aiden Hutchinson's going to go first overall. I think it could be him or Trevon Walker, obviously, but I think when push comes to shove, there's just a little bit too much security in Hutchinson. Even if he's not a great player, he's going to be a very good player, good leader. And I think the Jaguars will go in that direction. I think that means that the Lions they desperately need a pass rusher. Trevon Walker's got massive upside. There are very few people with his size and athletic testing. I think he will go there. This is a very interesting pick for me, guys, with Houston, because they are desperate for a pass rusher. They are absolutely desperate for a pass rusher. And I've been mocking Ike Ekwonu to them, or Evan Neal. And that's an option too, because Laramie Tunsil might move on and their offensive line isn't amazing. But they just don't have anything in the pass rush. So I won't be surprised at all if they took Jermaine Johnson or Kayvon Thibodeau here. And if that happens, it could be that we have 4 pass rushers coming off the board straight away. That's a very real possibility. However, I also think that the thing is, I'm even second guessing doing the pick now. Lovie Smith's defenses are built from the front. You know, I know he's been harping on about cornerbacks all the time, but he builds from the front. So I'm not sure. I'm going to give them the offensive lineman, but I'm not convinced by this. It could easily be a pass rusher. I'll have them taking a pass rusher in this. If I was going to do a second round, I would have them taking a pass rusher there instead. On to the Jets. They are desperate for pass rush. This is where I think Jermaine Johnson will come off the board. If Ekwonu's gone already, I think he'd be an option for the Jets as well. And that leaves the Giants. Have you seen all this talk? You know, for some reason, they've been linked with Charles Cross very heavily, who I'm not a fan of. But no smoke without fire and all of that. Although Mike Garofalo has just been on the NFL Network saying he doesn't think there's anything in this Charles Cross to the Giants stuff. And I'd usually be inclined to believe him, but I'm also wondering whether the Giants are saying, can you just put that fire out because we quite want him. So anyway, I'm going to put him there at number 5. And then I really think there's almost no chance the Panthers are going to take a quarterback here. And I think people are sort of getting the hopes up that Evan Neal's going to last to number 9. In that segment on the NFL Network, by the way, I've just watched it. They did a mock draft and Evan Neal fell to number 9. And Mel Kiper's mocked Evan Neal to number 9. Todd McShay's done it. Todd and Mel did a mock draft and put Evan Neal at number 9. I just caution all Seahawks fans against getting their hopes up on that. It's very unlikely to happen that Evan Neal is going to squeeze past Houston, the Jets, the Giants, and the Panthers to get to Seattle. I would not get your hopes up on that. So I've got him going at number 6. And I think they prefer him than Charles Cross anyway. Giants back on the clock. Thibodeau could easily go 3. He could go 4. He could go 5. In this particular mock, I've got him going 7. The Falcons, I don't think they're going to go quarterback at all here. A year ago, they took Kyle Pitts as best player available. I think that the likely option is they either take a receiver or they just take Sauce Gardner, and I think they're going to do that. I don't think Sauce Gardner is the best cornerback in this draft. I've been calling him Secret Sauce because he's not done any of the testing. He's done one run at the combine. He did drills. He's not done anything else, and I don't think that's right. You know, Derek Stingley's done everything, and he's had an injury. So I would have wanted to see Sauce Gardner do all that testing. What's he got to hide? Go and do it. But he hasn't. So I don't think he's cornerback. I don't think he's cornerback 1 anyway. But speaking to somebody who I trust, who was in the league a few weeks ago, they said Gardner will go before Stingley, but he felt that Stingley was the best cornerback. So that brings us to number 9, fellas. Robbie, if this is the situation, what would you do?
Well, this is a tough situation. Now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, listen. We have a lot of resources in safety, and Kyle Hamilton is 6'4", hard hitting beast. He's the kind of guy I'd be like, man, if I could snag him and trade the Peacock, let's do that. Not realistic. I think Derek Stingley is a good option at this point. But what I would do is I would see if there's any trade partners and try to trade down, see if there's someone who's wanting to come up to grab maybe a Jordan Davis or a Kyle Hamilton. That's what I would do. Drop down a few more spots and try to pick up another pick or two.
Yeah, I mean, people are now telling me why I'm wrong. You know, having watched every one of Sauce Gardner's games in 2021, and all of Derek Stingley's, and having spoken to people in the league. Okay, Adam. You know, in this situation here, you know, do you generally agree with? Is there sort of a position or a player that you'd sort of think, well, go and get him?
I think John and Pete and their scouts have to have a serious discussion at this point with each other and say, you know, no BS. Who would you stake your reputation on as a no-brainer second contract player for the Seahawks? You know, I'm not even talking Darryl Taylor, Jordan Brooks, who, you know, we might, you know, probably get into a second contract. I want who is here that is DK Metcalf level of going to need a second contract. Who's going to keep us up at night thinking how we're going to pay that guy? And you have to trust them from there. I mean, my instinct would say that it could be the cornerback. But, you know, I probably think that maybe we're in a worse state than others do. But, you know, even if they think that, look, this wide receiver is going to be an absolute superstar, just take him and have three great wide receivers. I mean, it's a great way to help out a flailing, potentially quarterback, maybe help your running game is to, you know, just put more weapons on the outside for someone. So I think Stingley would be my gut instinct. But I think at that point, they have to have a real sort of come to Jesus moment and say if we have to stake our careers on this guy, because ultimately the 9th pick has to, as you say, has to show up on the trade thing as something that is monumentally beneficial to the Seahawks, or otherwise, what the heck was the point of trading your franchise leader? So who's going to do that for you?
What I've got them doing is trading down, and I'm going to trade them down with Houston, who I think in this situation, whether it's for a receiver, whether it's for a cornerback, apparently the Texans have been doing a lot of work on Derek Stingley. I think they might look to move up 4 spots. Now, what would you get? I'm not sure you would get 68. I think the determination to move down. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to give, so in order to force this through, because it will reject any kind of trade that isn't just completely working with the chart. So I'm going to tell you what I think would be fair. And I think something like 80 and 108 might be fair. In order to make sure it gets through, I'm going to give them the first round pick there as well. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I was just to make sure that it goes through. So there we go. So the Texans move up to number 9 and they take Derek Stingley. Then the Jets here will take the first receiver off the board if they haven't already traded number 10 away for Deebo Samuel, which is a big link at the moment. I've got Jameson Williams going at number 11 to the Washington Commanders. There's all sorts of talk that the Vikings like Trent McDuffie, so let's have them at number 12. And now here are the Seahawks. My preference would be to either trade down again or to look at somebody like Zion Johnson. If you say that's too early for a guard, well, Elijah Vera Tucker went 14th overall last year, and I think he's a perfectly good player and will be for the Jets. So that would be my sort of thought process in that one. But I think that the Seahawks are going to take Trevor Penning here. Let me get rid of that. Trevor Penning at 13, ahead of the Ravens, who apparently like Penning as well. If they take him in this range, Robbie, do you feel any better about it?
Not really. He just doesn't excite me. He's not the guy I want to take. I mean, you're still running the same problems whether you take him at 9 or 13. He still has the same problems. In my opinion, you trade down again, But again, there's a lot of players that I like more than Penny, so he doesn't really excite me. I don't think this is a good decision. Good decision.
Adam, any thoughts on going in this direction with a tackle? I mean, I would not take, as I said, I would not take Penny. I think people think that I'm now sort of cheerleading for Trevor Penny because I mocked him to the Seahawks, but a mock is a projection. It's not this is what I want. But it feels very much like the kind of move the Seahawks would make here.
It certainly does. I just wonder, if this was Penei Sewell coming out last year, and you could say, right, that's probably a cornerstone of the line for hopefully a decade. But, before he's even drafted, we're seeing, is he up to it? Look at these clips of him not doing well. And I have a hugely, hugely reductive view that I want to pay my trenches and draft my skill positions on the outside, because I feel that there's so many of them coming through the draft year on year on year. I think we'll see a real kind of reset of the market and wide receivers back to the norm, because there's just so many of them that there's part of me that thinks that if we're kind of putting 2022 as a build it for next year, well, there should be a ton of cap space going into the following year where maybe you can pick up 2 tackles in free agency, but perhaps you've drafted some great talent that, going into 2023, you've got some stars on the outside for hopefully a quarterback that you can draft. I don't really know where this gets you going forward, taking this guy. I don't really see how it's a cornerstone for the future.
I would generally agree with that. And Derek Stingley, if you do just sit at 9 and take him, and I'll just repeat what I've said on the blog. I think there are people watching this who have perhaps not read the article. When I spoke to somebody in the league who is, I respect immensely, they said that they rated Derek Stingley higher than Patrick Surtain, who was, I think, the number 9 overall pick a year ago. Now, if he's as good or better than Patrick Surtain in Denver, that's a really good pick. So, and people saying about the injury, yeah, but also look at the state of LSU for the last 2 years. And you do your homework, and look, teams will do the homework on the injury. And if that Lisfranc injury is a really serious issue, he will sink like a stone and he will fall down the first round. But if it's fine, then teams are going to have no issues taking this guy. He's a tremendous, tremendous talent. But here we've got the Seahawks moving down. It's hard to ignore the fact that the Seahawks have not taken a cornerback early in the past. So the Ravens at number 14. In this situation, they drafted Haloti Ngata. Did you guys know that Daniel Jeremiah was on the Ravens scouting department when they drafted Haloti Ngata? Anyway, it's my little joke. He gets to be on the NFL Network when they draft Jordan Davis, who could be Haloti Ngata, but he has to keep his weight down. 15, it does feel, the fact that he's ranked 15th, the Eagles are picking 15th, George Karlaftis just feels like the kind of player you can imagine the Eagles drafting. First of the 2 picks for New Orleans, I do think they're going to target a receiver and a quarterback, as many people have been suggesting. In this instance, I've got them taking Drake London. I'm a little bit wary of him just because of the fact he has and it doesn't run a 40. I think receivers at that size, you need to see a 40 before you can feel really good about them. But a lot of people like him, so I've got him going to number 16. Staying with the receivers, Chris Olave to the Chargers. They're in a position to take luxury picks at this point. 18, the Eagles. I've got Kyle Hamilton coming off here. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's sort of talk in the last 24 hours that Kyle Hamilton is going to last into I think it was the 16 to sort of 20, mid-20s range. That teams are just souring a little bit. He ran a 4.7 at his pro day. He ran a 4.5, whatever it was, at his combine. That was a very weird run. I just think with him, it's safe with the safety position as it is, and with some of the other players that are available later on, I just think he may well last a bit longer. And Derwin James lasted to, 17 overall back in the day, I think it was. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that we see something similar with Kyle Hamilton and he lasts to number 18. So, and look, he may even be let's just pause the mock here and just let me ask you about this. Thank you, by the way, to Paid at Sports Cards for the super chat, but also for the comment, which I think is a review of the compensation that I got in that trade. But I think that's it. I don't think teams are going to be that desperate to throw away day 2 picks this year. I think you're going to have to take a discount if you want to move up. I want to ask you guys about this. Robbie, first of all, the Seahawks have had a virtual meeting with Kyle Hamilton. They've had numerous safeties in for VMAT visits, including Lewis Seen, who is the Georgia safety. Are the Seahawks seriously considering drafting a safety early and putting even more stock into that position, despite paying Quandre Diggs, trading for and paying Jamal Adams, retaining Marquise Blair, who's a former second round pick? The fact they've got Ryan Neal, who's done a really good job for the Seahawks at a pittance of a cost. Surely they're not going to take another safety. But then, the system that Sean Desai used in Chicago featured a lot of free safety looks.
Well, listen, if I'm being honest, I would rather us take Kyle Hamilton than Trevor Penny. I think he is a guy that has tremendous upside. He looks like a linebacker playing in the safety position. He hits hard. He plays physical. He just looks like the guy. And this could be a sign as well of them saying, hey, we messed up on the Jamal Adams trade, and they're planning on making a move after this season. Again, it's a lot of resources tied up in the safety position. Not my favorite, but if I'm picking between the two, I think I would rather have Hamilton. I just think he has that makeup of a guy who's going to get a second contract, who could be a force for your defense for years to come. Whereas I feel like Trevor Penny is going to be that guy being like, how did he even get drafted in the first round? Or maybe even like he's okay, but you look at all these guys that got drafted after him, and we're questioning why we drafted him in the first place. I don't know. I wouldn't hate the Hamilton pick, but just to be honest, I mean, if we traded down, let's say even to 18 at this spot and picked him up, I would not. I wouldn't be mad about it.
I think Lewis Seen's a better player than Kyle Hamilton. I've got to be honest. I think his read and react is as good. He's quicker. I think he's a harder hitter. I mean, I'm not saying he's miles better than Kyle Hamilton, but I think I've got him ahead on my horizontal board, ahead of Hamilton. And I wonder if teams will view that as well. I wonder if he could go a little bit higher than people think, Lewis Seen. I mean, look, there's every chance that Jamal Adams is a busted flush at this point. Like that, we may, he may be in and out of the team. He may be not for long in Seattle, given that he's got injuries. Adam, let me ask you, what would your reaction be if the Seahawks took a safety with one of their first 3 picks in this draft?
Well, John Schneider in that press conference that you were mentioning said, we're doing whatever we can to have a consistent championship caliber football team. Now, that appeared to be a comment said without a hint of irony. So I can only assume that they have quite unbelievable faith in their sort of job security, that, they can just say this stuff almost unchallenged. And I think taking a safety with their first 3 picks would probably be another indication that they have no fears about their job security going forward, because, in another world, you would say that's pretty balls to the wall. And if this doesn't work, it would be, immediate. What are you doing, giving safeties in back-to-back years upwards of $50 million a year and then doing this? So I think we'd all have a real head scratch on Thursday evening. But then I guess, would anyone be that surprised if they went as rogue as doing something like that? Just because I guess they just know they're in a job for as long as they want it, by the sounds of it.
This is a good point because, I mentioned that the Seahawks, Sean Desai at the Bears ran a lot of 3 safety looks. Curtis has pointed out as well here that Desai had Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn, and Akeem Hicks. And, if Seattle had that, if they had really good pass rushers up front, they could probably afford to take a luxury pick like Kyle Hamilton and say, look, we'll put Hamilton at strong safety. Let's say we will move Jamal Adams into this kind of death backer role where you're going to get the best out of him. That would make some sense. But if you take Kyle Hamilton or Lewis Seen and play them in that role, and then you can move Jamal Adams forward, but who's your pass rush? At the moment it's Shelby Harris and Darrell Taylor and Uchenna and Wosu. How threatening is that going to be for opponents. To be honest, it's not particularly, is it? So anyway, we'll move on. Kyle Hamilton at number 18. At 19, this is when I've got the quarterbacks coming off the board. I've spent so much time watching these quarterbacks, I just cannot get excited about this group. Kenny Pickett is number 19 to New Orleans, and then I'll have Malik Willis coming off the board at 20. I feel like I've talked about my issues with both of those players enough to avoid having to go into it again. I think Zion Johnson's floor is 21 to the Patriots. I think that's the lowest he's going to fall. I think he could go earlier than that. 22, Green Bay, Treylon Burks, they need a receiver. 23, I've got Arizona taking Tyler Smith as a tackle, improving their offensive line. I think that's important for them. And then I don't think Tyler Smith's got a future at tackle. I think he's going to kick into guard. I think the guy I've got going next, Abraham Lucas to Dallas, has got a big future at tackle. And I think he would be a home run pick for the Cowboys there, number 24 overall. 25 for Buffalo. I keep going back and forth on this guy. I can't tell whether he's a really great player or who's going to go in the teens, or just somebody who I don't know, maybe his technique's a bit too unorthodox. It didn't test brilliantly. I've got Devin Lloyd going to the Bills at number 25. 26, Tennessee. Spoke to someone recently who insisted that Andrew Booth's the third best cornerback in this draft. There are still people in the league who feel that way. Kyler Gordon has been talked about as someone who has been getting first-round grades, so I think there's still a chance that he will sneak into this kind of range here for teams. And look, there's always a rush on cornerbacks towards the end of the first round. Teams really value that as a premium position. You do see a lot of corners go in this kind of range, and I think that could be the case again here. So Kyler Gordon at 27, Green Bay at 28. They took a receiver with their first pick. I've got them taking Travis Jones here. They love a big defensive tackle in Green Bay. They've taken a couple of those in the first round over the years. B.J. Raji, Kenny Clark, now Travis Jones at 28. 29, Kansas. I've got them taking Dax Hill as somebody who can be versatile, nickel, safety. A lot of options there with Dax Hill. And then at number 30, I've got them trading down. Now, I think there is going to probably be a team that trades up here to take the third quarterback. Whether it's Seattle or not, we will find out, won't we, in a few days' time. I mean, probably have my head in my hands if that happens. I don't want to, rush this push for a quarterback. I'm not interested in that particularly. But I do think this is the spot because Kansas City have 2 firsts. They'd be probably willing to trade down. You probably get a better deal than you will with some of these other teams. In this instance, I am not going to have them trading down with the Seahawks. I'm going to have the Falcons moving up instead. So we can all celebrate that. Hang on. Kansas City and Atlanta. And again, I will just do whatever it takes to get this done. So let's say third rounder and that. And then I'm just kidding. That's what the deal is. That's just to make sure it goes through. Oh, hang on. It's not letting me do it from the... This is the problem with the Pro Football Network mock draft. When you want to do something just to make a point, it won't let you. So 30, 43, 74. Do you know what? We'll just give them 58 and see if that'll get it done. So I'm just making a point here that I want Atlanta to trade up. And then, who do they take? I mean, I don't know if either of you two have watched Desmond Ridder. I just don't get it. I don't understand where a lot of the stuff comes from with Ridder. People go and watch the Navy game. It's awful. The first half against Notre Dame, awful. The Alabama game, he just looked completely out of his depth. I just don't get it. The arm talent's not really there. His accuracy is all over the place. He feels pressure and tries to run too quickly. I just want him to hang in there, make some plays. I get the maturity. I get the athleticism. I get the fact that he's really helped Cincinnati elevate. I don't see how he can be a first-round pick at all. And if he is, fantastic if somebody else takes him. I'm going to have the Falcons taking him here just because I think he's quite similar to Marcus Mariota, but I don't get it. And I don't get it with Sam Howell. I don't think he's any good either. But there we go. Final 2 picks. Wyatt is falling a bit, apparently, because there are some character concerns. Otherwise, I think he'd be in the top 20. But one of the Bengals ever worried about character concerns. And then Detroit, I've got them taking Quay Walker. So there you go. It's finished already. So that's the mock draft that I've got there, guys. I'm sure that, based on the comments I've seen so far, people think it's a load of rubbish. I am in the top 10 for Huddle Report mock draft scoring, but there we go. It is what it is. And from that point of view, guys, the Seahawks have not moved up. There are still people like Matt Corral if they wanted to take a quarterback in round 2. I would rather them trade up for Tyler Linderbaum. It would take some of the. I think if you got Linderbaum and Penning, and it was a sort of concerted effort there to improve your offensive line, I could probably live with that more than taking Trevor Penning than moving up for a quarterback. But Robbie, have you got any thoughts on where that would leave Seattle going into day 2 before we do a very quick simulation just for a laugh?
Well, I like that they kept their picks and didn't trade up in the first round. Unless someone that they really, really like drops. Hopefully it's not a quarterback, but I just don't see any reason to trade up. I think keep your picks. I'd rather see them trade down in the first and select Penning. And then, like I said, I just find that there's a lot better talent, or as my opinion, I feel like there's better players available, and based on just overall talent, not just on need. So I hope they don't go off need and they just go off best player available. But at least they kept their 2 picks in that scenario.
I mean, I'd really like, Adam, you were talking about how unpredictable the top 10, people viewing it. And a lot of reporters have been saying that in the last 24 hours. And if it is unpredictable and we see like a Garrett Wilson go in the top 10 or a quarterback, or I don't think the quarterbacks will, but let's say Garrett Wilson or somebody else, somebody completely out of the blue goes in the top 10. That's what we need to see, isn't it? We want to see somebody unexpectedly fall to number 9. And then at number 9, we're all sat watching the draft on Thursday night, and we're all thinking, "Great, that's someone didn't expect to be there. I can live with that. Good." And that's kind of the feeling we all want, isn't it? We want to come out of this draft thinking, "I can live with that." I think that's all you can ever really hope for. I think you just want to be content at the end of a first round.
Yeah, I think you probably need to look at it at the end of day 2 as an overall package on how they've come out of it on the first 3 rounds. Because unless something completely unfounded or unexpected happens, and a real, one of the defensive ends falls to them because there's a weird run on quarterbacks or something, I can't imagine that anyone's going to go to bed on Thursday or Friday morning, beyond thrilled with what they've done. But there probably is the position to do that after what we see how they use the round 2 picks and see how that goes. I would have thought. Yeah,
I mean, for me, a home run would be if someone like Evan Neal did fall to 9 and then play him at guard, because the man who drafted Brandon Scherf has told me personally that Evan Neal reminds him of Brandon Scherf. So re-sign Dwayne Brown, Neal at guard. Man, he's not a fit though, is he? He's not a fit for the new scheme at that size. So you're probably going to have to play him at tackle. Anyway, forget that thought. But something like Evan Neal at 9, and then pass rusher, Linderbaum type with your next 2 picks. That'd be ideal for me. Or Derek Stingley, and then same thing. Or trading down, Zion Johnson, Linderbaum. You can see a consistency. I'm quite a fan of the Seahawks taking Linderbaum purely because they've said that they want that type of center. So if you want that type of center, go and get the best one who's out there available. Don't just settle for Austin Blythe. Go and get someone who's actually going to be there for more than a year.
Or anybody from Georgia.
Or anybody from Georgia.
Anybody
Georgia
from Georgia
defenders,
yes.
is fine by me. Right, so let's just bring the thing back in here very quickly for here we go for a simulation. Let's have a bit of fun with this now. This could be hilarious as to who's available here. I've just picked the Seahawks now. I've put it as a really fast, so it will shoot through. Let's have a look what it does, because this can be all over the place, can't it? We were talking about this, Robbie. So here we go, because this is what we're talking about. Malik Willis at number 2. That ain't happening. Kyle Hamilton at number 6. What? Like, why? As if they would take a safety at number 6. And Garrett Wilson and Jamison Williams. So Kwonu and Johnson and Gardner are all there, Robbie. And this is why you can't do these things, isn't it?
Yeah, that's terrible.
Because I'll take it, you can't. It's not realistic. Let's do it again. Let's do one more. So we'll give it 3 goes to give us a realistic scenario. Then we'll just bin it off. Okay, here we go. So he's done it again. He's put Kyle Hamilton at number 6, Malik Willis at number 2, Jordan Davis at number 4, Aiden Hutchinson lasts to number 8. Madness. Let's try one more time, and then I'm just going to kick it into touch, as we would say over here. Okay. So still a little bit crazy. Not as bad, but still a bit daft. Let's just say that Jermaine Johnson for. Well, actually, do you want? No, let's just say Jermaine John. Let's just take Jermaine Johnson at 9, because if he is there, you'd probably take him. Okay, let's see what happens here. So I'm rejecting that, and I'm rejecting that. I'm taking Tyler Linderbaum, and then with the second pick, would you trade down 25 spots to get Detroit's second-round pick next year?
That's tough. So what would that give us? 3 second-round picks next year and 2 firsts?
Yeah, and potentially a high second, but it's quite a long way that though, isn't it? 25 picks. It's like a whole round.
Yeah.
To move down. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just take Abraham Lucas. Tell the Detroit Lions to shove it. No. Okay. So we've got a pass rusher, got a center, we've got a tackle. What else do we need, fellas?
A corner.
Yeah, we need a corner.
Linebacker. We need a linebacker.
The linebacker. Chad Boomer's there. Why is Leo Chanel still there?
Or Channing Tindall.
Why is Channing Tindall still there? He's going to go in the 30s or 40s.
In this scenario, I'd take Channing Tindall. I mean, he's a beast.
I would take Channing Tindall, but it's not realistic. He's in it. You know, this is Fantasyland stuff. This is Drew Lock winning comeback player of the year. Fantasyland stuff. I'll tell you what. I'm going to ignore this position because I just think he wouldn't be there. He wouldn't be there, and I don't think he would be there. He'd be a first-round pick if he was, or potentially if he was healthy. You know what? I'm going to take the guy that I've been saying I think they might take. Why is Breece Hall available at 72, fellas? Do you see that? Why is Breece Hall there? That's ridiculous. I'm taking Damian Pierce, and I don't even regret it. I don't care. Right. So you want a linebacker here or a corner?
Or a corner.
Channing Tindall's still there. This is ridiculous. Let's take a cornerback. Oh, he'd be long gone by then, but I really like him, so we'll take him. So there you go. You've got a cornerback now. I've always said that I like Cody Barton. You know, he's such a good player. Oh dear. All the linebackers have gone now. That's a shame. I'll take. I like this guy. He's really good. Okay. Who else is? Oh, here we go. So we've only got one more pick now, and then you can tell me what you think. You give it a Mel Kiper style grade. Tell me why it's good or bad. Yeah. Right. What do you think, guys? Robbie, give it a grade.
Well, this is an A. Look at our first 5 picks.
Wow. That is an A, actually, when I look at it like that. That's not even an A. In fact, I'm offended that you've not given it an A+.
A+, yeah. I mean, listen, that's a great draft right there.
No, but I filled a lot of needs there, Adam.
Yeah, and look, my goal is championship game 2023, and in order to get there, they're going to have to fill a lot of holes. And what you've done there, we've gone through the list of positions that I've got as my rankings, and you've got 4 of them in the first 5 picks, to running back aside. So you'd be thrilled with that as long as the players end up coming good.
Yeah, I mean, so a quick thought on all those guys. I mean, Jermaine Johnson be, fantastic pick, and that would set the tone. He'd be a team captain within a year or two, and would be a perfect partner for Darrell Taylor. Tyler Linderbaum comes in and just locks down the centre position for the next 5 years, at least. Abraham Lucas does the same at right tackle. Bring back Dwayne Brown to play left tackle. You've got Damian Pierce there, he is a Seahawks running back. And then Jalen Amore Davis, who is not going to be there at 109, but if he was, is really got the potential to be a starting cornerback. Percy Butler comes in. He is an outstanding special teams gunner. So you bring him in for the special teams more than anything, but he's also got a little bit something about him that you could maybe develop him into a potential safety down the line. Michael Clemens, aggressive, big, add some depth to your pass rushing rotation. And then Jalen Watson as a cornerback as well. I just took him because I like him. He's probably not going to be there in the 7th round. So let's go for that. John, Pete, if you just do that, that'd be grand. That would be okay. We didn't address the linebacker position, but maybe you can sign one of those when you're in your oh crap, we've not filled this hole after the draft period. So there we go. Yeah. So that's about it. Is there anything else you want to say, Robbie, before we finish? Any thoughts in your mind going into this? I mean, it's all gone pretty. I'm surprised how quiet it's all gone in the NFL.
Yeah.
Before the draft, I thought there was some more big. I mean, we've still got the Deebo Samuel stuff, but it felt like now there might be something that happens, and it's pretty quiet at the moment, apart from Deebo.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I think someone asked earlier kind of what the comparison of Trevor Penny is to someone in the NFL. And by the NFL .com prospects page, they say Trevor Penny, his NFL comparison would be Riley Reif, who, by the way, is a free agent. So if you wanted Trevor Penny, just go sign Riley Reif to play tackle for you. There you go. Then you don't have to draft him.
How are you feeling, Adam? Are you excited, optimistic, nervous, anxious? Couldn't care. What are you feeling right now?
It's tricky. I mean, we've reflected quite a lot on how our fandom goes over here, what with being fans in the UK to another team, and I think everyone knows that my sort of heart belongs to another sports team, so I can probably view the Seahawks with more of an objective 30,000 feet view than I would do Spurs, where the fanaticism completely takes over. Now maybe that sort of invalidates me as a fan in inverted commas, but I think our love for it, we're up at 20 past midnight again talking about them, so we certainly love them. But it's just interesting to see. I feel I need some juice back in my fandom. I think I need to be reinvigorated by what's going on. But I think the thing that's overriding me at the moment is what's going on with how the wide receivers are going to go. And I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I'm wondering if this wide receiver rush for new contracts, it's going to go one of two ways. Is it going to see people dipping into the first round and reaching in order to get that 5th year of security, so you don't end up in this position after 3 years like so many teams have? Or, as probably I would go, are more of these teams going to think, well, there's so many of these guys in the 2nd, 3rd round that if you've got any sort of cap constraints, you can probably move them on. Now, conversely, DK Metcalf for me is a must sign for Seattle, because it's unlikely they're going to have to pay big bucks to a quarterback for 6 years. So, what are you spending the money on if not on a star like DK Metcalf? But I am interested to see how it goes with these sort of guys that I would see as a level just below Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. I'm not necessarily convinced that their trades and contracts should be a message for what's going on. I think they might be the outliers, given they probably are 1 and 2 in the league right now.
Well, I can tell you, I've seen all these people suddenly talking about staying up all night to watch the draft. It's reminded me that it does start at 1 o'clock in the morning over here, and how tiring the 3 days are going to be. But we will have a lot of coverage around this draft. Robbie and I have already had a conversation. We'll do a live reaction at the end of every day. We'll jump on and reflect on what the Seahawks have done. I'll be live blogging throughout all of the 3 days of the draft. So SeahawksDraftBlog.com for that. All the reaction on this channel and on the Rebuild podcast. And I'm going to have another. So we've done the mock draft today. I'll have my final mock draft out on Wednesday, which is the Huddle Report scoring. There was the showing of an ankle at the prospect of an interview with a top prospect in this draft by somebody to me the other day. And now they've gone deathly quiet. So I don't think it's going to happen or not, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it will. And that could come in the next couple of days. So I'll find out, hopefully, in the next 24 hours whether that's going to happen. But all the more reason to subscribe so you don't miss it just in case to the channel. Like the channel as well. People have been pointing out that Robbie has got a guitar in the background in the comment section. So to play us out, here's Robbie Williams with Norwegian Wood by the Beatles. Go on, Robbie.
I'll just hide that for you there. You don't want to see that.
I'm kidding. But no, I like the fact that people said he's just got it there for the chicks. Yeah, got a guitar, man.
Yeah.
I've got some children's toys in the background. So there we go. That's how cool.
I sure try hard, but it's not good.
Yeah, I did that once. I think I taught myself how to do Jingle Bells, and then probably passed on that. But I'd love to play the guitar one day. Maybe once. Maybe if the Silks win another Super Bowl, I could pack this in, just got a job done and learn guitar.
There you go.
Instead. There you go. Right, fellas, enjoyed the show. Thank you. Yep, like the channel or like the video. Subscribe to the channel. silkstrapblog.com for the latest. We'll see you all next time. Bye for now.